Hello and welcome to Online Learning in a Hurry, guest episode number 12 with Sundi Richard. How you doing? Thank you so much for coming. Today we are going to actually talk about pedagogies of care, which has been one of those things that I've talked about or mentioned a lot about the show. We haven't actually anybody really focused on it. So Sundi, I really appreciate you coming in to talk to us today. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're at, what you do, and then drop the knowledge on us, please?
Absolutely. So I am Assistant Director for Digital Learning at Davidson College in Davidson, North Carolina, which is a small liberal arts residential college. And so I lead a group of instructional designers and technologists and a couple librarians now in the library to work with faculty and students on digital learning.
Oh, cool.
That's where I am and who I am. Do you want me to just jump into?
Just jump in there. Get in there.
Jump in here. Okay. Yeah. So I'm here to talk about pedagogy of care or pedagogies of care today. I will say that this is not something that I've studied deeply or I am the expert on, but this is something that has really risen to the top for me. And so I'm paying a lot of attention to it. It's something that me and a colleague were looking into when we were thinking about the ways that care gets used with educational technology. So we were looking at that, and I was introduced to Nell Notting and other people like this who have been talking about the ethics of care when teaching. Right. But what I've seen is this really rise to the top as something that it's having more visibility now. Right. So it's, for me, become a way to make hard decisions. Okay. And it's also a way to think about course design and bridging folks who have only thought about course design in a face-to-face manner, sure, thinking about online course design. I think it's a really nice bridge because it exists in both worlds. And right now it's hyper visible because we're all in situations that are precarious, personal, various, inequitable, so many things. And so care is just one of those things that we have to keep at the forefront.
So I'm teaching a course right now. We talked a little bit about this before. What are the things that I should be keeping in mind while I'm teaching these 25 faculty that I'm working with? What should I be doing?
So I think thinking about the ways that you show care in a course. So I think in a face-to-face course, we might say, like, when you welcome somebody into the classroom, right? Office hours are a way to show care. So now when you're moving into an online environment, how do you show care there? Is it the same? What things do you have to do differently? Right. And I think a lot of the things about good online course development pop up, right? So consistency, communication, various modes of interacting with material, being available to students. What are some other things? Feedback, right? The ability to give students a way to give you feedback along the way, not just at the end. And so you can react to what they are thinking and feeling and experiencing. And right now, I think, people are experiencing various things. And so it's all the more important reason to hear from them and figure out what their experience is.
So we did a feedback session the first night. We did we used the test module inside the LMS as a way of testing out the test module, but also getting feedback on the first day. I have that feeling where I'm like, oh my God, does this mean I'm doing a terrible job in my course? How do I process my own feelings about being involved in that? Because it's not just about the students, right? Like I know that my first response was, and then I was like, oh wait, I asked them because I care, didn't I? So what's that process look like?
Yeah, I think some folks have also talked about the balance between care for your students and self-care.
Right.
So yes, like thinking through that and making sure that you're not blaming it on yourself, right, but knowing that feedback is, again, if you're asking for it, you're wanting it to change the way that you're doing something. And right, so realizing that, yes, it's not against you personally, but rather the ways that you are doing things. And I think another thing you can do is share the feedback with students in the way that you interpreted it to make sure that that's that's really what's happening and why you're changing those things. Yeah, feedback is a really hard thing. And I think, you know, if you're asking for it and you're getting difficult feedback, you know, pat yourself on the back and make sure your friends tell you what a good job you're doing in so many other ways, and know that you are.
Yeah, we tried to, we did a little video. We did, one of my colleagues went, hey, let's do a video that responds to all that and let them know what we think of it. So she actually did exactly what you were saying, which is super cool. So that's while you're doing it. How do you design, like what kinds of things should you put in your design? You said early feedback. That makes sense to me. I know that, for instance, it's hard to know right now where students are at and their responses feel different, maybe because they're locked in their houses. What other sort of design tools should I be thinking about?
Well, I know one of the core principles of online design is building community and getting to know your students, because that in a digital space is just, there's not a lot of the things that we normally rely on. And I know some people in a face-to-face environment sometimes don't do a lot of that kind of personal stuff in their classes.
Not my job.
Not right. So it's easier to separate that stuff. And I think people now in this situation are feeling like, oh, I kind of do need to know some things that are happening in my students' lives in order to be able to adjust, react, know what's happening, grade in a way that's equitable. And so I think building things into the course design where you are actually learning about your students' experiences with the things that they want to share. So figuring out where they are, what their situation is, what their challenges are, right, in a way that they can opt out of that or not, right? But giving them the chance to share that with you.
Right. So we had a couple of other people talk about some of the stuff that they were doing. So, Maha Bali was talking about the fact that she uses Slack to get to know her students. And Clarissa said something really interesting where she has 400 students and it was one of the most friendly groups that she'd ever had. So what does that look like at scale from your perspective? Because I understand how that happens with 20 people. What does that look like with 150?
I think you have to build community within the course, right? You need to give them both. One of the things we've seen is connecting students to resources that the campus has, right, that are more difficult to, or people don't know about in an online environment. They might not be thinking like, you've mentioned before, the library, right? The library has lots of resources. Yeah. The Center for Teaching and Learning has lots of resources, and all those people right now are still thinking about how are we going to support students. And so making that visible and connecting that to classes, I think, is really important.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, scale is hard, and, you know, cohorts, grouping, trying to find those smaller units that can support each other, I think can be really helpful.
Perfect. Pedagogies of care about you, care about them. Classrooms are going to be more fun anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, I did want to mention too that I watched the Robin DeRosa and Martha Burtis, thank you, episode before this, and there was a lot of things that I was thinking about there, and I really appreciated what they were saying about connecting to your school mission. Yeah. And, you know, I can also see administration making decisions around care, right? And so that's when you know that the folks are thinking through the right things, or you can suggest that they are thinking about these things, that, you know, things like pass fail, giving students that option, getting rid of ACT and SAT scores. Do you use those in Canada?
No, but I know what you mean. We all know what they are. We've seen them on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have something comparable?
Not really. I mean, we do through the medical program, and in we still have an MCAT. We still have those kinds of things, but not generalized tests.
But not generalized throughout. So, you know, just getting rid of those things, I think, or the need for those things over a time period shows care, right?
Anything that can reduce the stress and the cognitive load.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much, Sundi. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow. 2 videos tomorrow, actually. Take care, folks.